Well, the court case of Nigerian pastor Timothy Omotoso has resumed in the High Court in Port Elizabeth. Omotoso and his co-accused face 97 charges. They range from sexual assault, rape to racketeering and trafficking for sexual purposes. The first witness, Cheryl Zondi, is back in the stand this morning. For a recap on the case, we now cross back to our reporter Jayde Leigh Paulse, who has been covering the trial throughout the course of the morning. Very good morning to Jayde. We see a different stance coming from Advocate Doberman this morning. Yesterday, he was very, very fierce. He was very, very tough. Today, he still seems to be quite stern, but not so much. And we're also seeing a very emotional Cheryl Zondi in the stand today.
That's very true, Shante. We have seen a different Doberman, cross-questioning Zondi, using words like ma'am now. That was quite a chuckle for us journalists to hear him actually saying that, because yesterday it was more stern, calling her Zondi, calling her witness, can you please answer the question? But change of heart, one could say. Just looking at the court or the trial proceedings, we saw Doberman asking Zondi several times why she returned back to the Jesus Dominion International Church after she was allegedly sexually assaulted, and she said that she wanted closure, Shante. She wanted to speak to the man of God, the man that she saw as a father figure, and she wanted an apology, but since then she never received an apology from Omotoso. Instead, he said that he accepted an apology from her, that she could join the church again. And she also gave accounts how on that day, she went back to one of the sermons that he was given. She sat in the church proceedings. She got to speak to some of the friends that she had made in church before she went back to the mission house. She spoke to the Galaxy group that she really looked up to, their singing group. She saw the Idols twins, and all her friends at the church said, Cheryl, return, come back to church, come back and rejoin. And that is the reason why she rejoined, but mostly because she wanted that apology. She was yearning for that apology from Timothy Omotoso, and she really thought that he was a changed man. When she was chatting to her friend Cindy over the phone, Cindy said to her that, he has changed, and she really felt that if she returned, things would be a lot different. But subsequently to her returning, she spoke about how Timothy Omotoso summoned her once again to the room, and that's when we had that tea break and court adjourned. Shante.
Now, Jay, just take us through Doberman's response in her wanting to actually go back and meet Pastor Timothy Omotoso again, saying that it was improbable that, of course, he was going to give her an apology. She also made reference to the pastor actually saying to her that he forgives her and not the other way around.
That's very true, Shante. I mean, he was trying to poke holes into her testimony, saying that why would anyone return back to a church when you have been molested? She was 14 years at the time. She returned back to the church when she was 15, and then again when she was 19. So he was saying, why would you return back to the church if you have been molested over this period, such a long period? Why did you not stay away? And she would continue saying that, she wanted that acceptance, she wanted that apology, and she wanted to know that she could move on with her life. So it was more of her getting closure from that ordeal. He also made reference of the mission house. He said to her that in her testimony, she said that she was first sexually assaulted in 2010 at a house in Westridge in Umhlanga Ridge, but then he brought out a lease agreement by Timothy Omotoso in Timothy Omotoso's name, citing that he only occupied the house on February the 1st, 2011, which was a year later. So he wanted to know, how did that actually happen? If that really did transpire in 2010, how is it that Omotoso only took occupants of the house in 2011? And we saw Zondi firing back, saying that he could have renewed that lease agreement. So all this came to the fore. But I must make mention of the fact that the judge was also not taking anything from Peter Doberman. He was very stance in his approach, and he reprimanded Omotoso's wife Taiwo, who has been laughing during Zondi's testimony during the court proceedings. If Natasha can just show you, Taiwo was set to not laugh during the court proceedings, and she was said to not chuckle as well. And he said that he would not tolerate such behavior during the court proceedings. But we've seen that throughout the trial, Omotoso's following church congregants laughing during Zondi's testimony and, saying that she's a liar and chuckling when she would often break down in court. Shante.
All right, so thank you very much, Jayde Leigh Paulse for SABC News. Let's have a look at some of the earlier highlights coming in from that Omotoso trial on day 2.
He told me that I was 19 now. So if ever I left the church, this time my punishment would be double what it would have been when I left when I was below the age of 18. And then I went to ask him. I don't know where I gathered those guts from, but I gathered those guts to ask him, why was it so necessary for you to do this to me? Why was that so necessary? And he told me there was no other option.
So you confronted him, in other words,
yes,
with what he had done?
Yes, I told him, I don't like what you did to me. I used those words. He remembers. He was there.
So you were not too scared of him to tell him that?
As I said, I gathered some guts.
Earlier highlights of Cheryl Zondi as she continues to give her testimony. We still have SABC's Jayde Leigh Paulse, who is coming to us live, giving us coverage from that courthouse this morning. We've also seen the co-accused sitting next to Pastor Omotoso, and as Cheryl Zondi, the victim here in this case, who has been giving her testimony, as she gets emotional and as she refers to certain questions responding to Prosecutor Doberman, she seems to be looking at her co-accused. She seems to be also looking at Pastor Timothy Omotoso when describing what has happened to her. Just also take us through one of the sections where she actually described the co-accused taking her upstairs in the house that they were, and what she referred to being known as an appointment with the man of God.
That's very true, Shante. We saw Zondi often looking up at Omotoso, looking at the co-accused, Lusando Solani and Zukiswa Sito, and also making mention of the fact of Lusanda, whose nickname is Lopsy in the house. She says that, when she was summoned to Omotoso's room the first time, she didn't know that he actually had a room. She actually thought it was actually an office where she would engage with the man of God, and that he would have a one-on-one with each lady, the 30 ladies that lived inside that house in Mklanga. But subsequently she found out that this room was where all the sordid, explicit, things happened with the girls. And she said that, when she was summoned to Omotoso's room, she knew what was going to happen. She knew from the first, experience that she had with Omotoso when he told her to close the door, that the second time she went there, she knew that she didn't have to close the door behind her because this was expected of her. But she said that it was almost like she couldn't speak back to him. She was afraid, she was scared. So everything he told her to do, she would just do in sequence. Lock the door. When he calls her, go and sit beside the bed. And when he would ask her to do those explicit sexual favors, she would entertain that.
Jayde, just take us through the traction that this court case has seemed to gotten, not only on social media, but specifically in Port Elizabeth. This morning we are seeing representatives from the ANC Women's League. We're also seeing other representatives from other various women's organizations. And of course, a lot of commentary coming through saying that they commend Cheryl Zondi for being able to speak up for possibly women that have gone through the same thing, that have not had the strength to do so themselves.
That's very true, Shantae. Well, this court case has gained a lot of traction. And I think it's predominantly because when we see rape victims coming out and speaking, we usually don't have it televised. We always hide their identity for their sake. But Cheryl Zondi said in open court that she wants to give her testimony. She wants to stand in solidarity with the other women who have fallen victim to sexual abuse, the alleged abuse by Timothy Omotoso, and she wants to get her story out there. She's been very adamant about that, and she's been very, very, strong with what she wants to happen. She said that she's not going to back down. She's going to ensure that she speaks up for every rape victim, man and woman. But just looking at Port Elizabeth, it has gained a lot of traction. A lot of people have been very invested in this trial. We saw the ANC Women's League also sitting in court proceedings. The DA have also come out throwing their support behind the witnesses and Cheryl Zondi. We also saw the CRL Commission. They also in attendance today. We'll try and get a interview with her later on. And several other members of the general public also coming in and sitting in proceedings. But I must also make mention of the fact that the trial has been the security has been very tight here at the Port Elizabeth High Court. Not anyone can come and go as you please. You would have to speak to the security, speak to the Hawks if you want to have a place in court. But generally, Shantae, it has gained a lot of traction on social media, a lot of traction on Facebook as well. People who are in support of Cheryl Zondi coming out and giving a harrow testimony in the Timothy Omotoso trial.
Thank you very much for giving us that update, Jayde Leigh Paulse for SABC News in PE. Currently, the Omotoso trial is on a tea break, but in the meantime, let's have a look